All right, welcome back to Aggie Pride UC Davis Football Podcast. Dwight and I are back home in Northern California after the sweet victory. We did a poll, Dwight, and do you think people listen to or want the reaction pod more or the preview pod?
UC Davis football stands for tradition, teamwork, and having each other's back, especially when times get tough. That's why we're proud to partner with Bold, Paulsner, Maddow, Nelson, and Judson, a respected California law firm with over 55 years of experience helping families and businesses prepare for life's unexpected turns. Whether you're navigating estate planning, probate and trust matters, civil litigation, or elder law, the team at BPM&J offers clear, compassionate guidance through California's legal landscape. BPM&J is deeply rooted in Aggie Pride. The firm is led by Craig Judson, a double UC Davis alum, and the Sacramento office is supervised by his son, Scott Judson, former Aggie Pack MC and past president of the UC Davis Cal-Aggie Alumni Association. 4 other attorneys in the firm are also proud Aggies. From starting a family to managing assets or honoring a loved one's legacy, Scott, Craig, and the BPM&J team are here to help with confidence, care, and compassion. Their services include estate planning, such as wills, trusts, and powers of attorney, incapacity and elder law planning, probate and trust administration and litigation, conservatorships and guardianships, and general civil litigation. With offices in Walnut Creek and Sacramento, BPM&J serves clients throughout California. Visit bpmnj.com to schedule a free consultation. And this season, listeners of the Aggie Pride podcast will receive an exclusive $500 discount on the preparation of a comprehensive estate plan. Just mention the podcast when you book your free consultation with either Scott or Craig. Please note this message does not constitute legal advice. For personalized guidance, contact BPM&J directly. The firm's attorneys are licensed only in California. Bold, Paulsner, Maddow, Nelson, and Judson. Powered by Aggie Pride.
Also, spend homecoming week with the Cal-Aggie Alumni Association. Starting on October 8th, CAAA is hosting a variety of events, including the annual Friday Night Social at Sudworth Brewing. Check out all events at alumni.ucdavis.edu/homecoming.
We've got a new home for Aggie Pride, a UC Davis football podcast. Visit AggiePridePodcast.com. It's the hub for everything. All our episodes, ways to subscribe for early access, and our brand new Aggie Pride classic hats in navy or beige. While you're there, sign up so you never miss an update, and follow us on all our socials for game day content, throwbacks, and behind the scenes. And don't forget, like, follow, and share the pod so we can keep growing the Aggie fan community.
Bank like a champion when you bank with University Credit Union. UCU is the official credit union of UC Davis and is committed to giving every UC Davis student, faculty, staff, and alum a financial advantage. From low loan rates and financial coaching to high savings rates, including our new Elite Certificate Special, University Credit Union helps you reach your financial goals. Visit ucu.org for details. Use promo code Aggie Pride Podcast to get started. University Credit Union is federally insured by NCUA.
Yeah, I was curious about that. I think the reaction pods have been pretty great as of late. So I would have voted for that, but I'm curious to hear what the folks had to say.
Okay, I'm with you. I'll answer it. I think it's easier to do a reaction pod because you don't necessarily have to do the research, full disclosure. And we're just hella busy humans. And so doing the research, especially like 24 hours after when our wives really want us to be present with our families, is kind of tricky. So I did ask it for that sake too. Like, hey, if we only do one of these a week, sometimes we'll try to do them twice. Which one do people want more? It was freaking down the middle. It ended up being like 55-45 reaction pod was the higher percentage, but I took it as like people like both. And then we had like 2 or 3 people just DM us, do both, like don't stop doing both. So that's what it is. Good to know. Both are a thing. They both are prevalent. Like you want to know right after the game, like what people are thinking, and you want to kind of hear the game back to yourself and hear some folks chat about it. But then you also, you want to preview an opponent, or like if you're driving to a game or flying to an away game, like I would love to drive to Davis from Martinez and listen to a podcast about UC Davis
Yeah.
football. Like that's why we make this.
Yeah, and there's an energy after a game, especially after wins, which we've had a lot, that like I think drive the interest in the recap. But there's also I think an innate curiosity, like how are we going to do? Which for folks that are getting more into UC Davis football, they're going to come here to hear that, which is why the preview episode is value. So that makes sense that it would be split, actually.
Yeah. Well, I'll go through a little bit of Northern Arizona's season thus far, and then you're going to chat a little bit about their defense and some things that stand out to you. I'm going to chat a little bit about their offense and things that stand out to me, and then we'll go through Davis and do our predictions, and we will finish with a playoff possibilities moment, and just kind of take a quick peek at what the playoffs could look like. It's crazy to say that already because we're 6 weeks into the year. We only have 5 results that we have officially. This is salt in the wound in looking at Northern Arizona's season so far. You said it. They're 4-2. They're not 4-1. So that extra game, and in their case, is a loss. Hopefully they get their 3rd loss of the season this Saturday. But just the fact that they have that extra game and we don't because of the no contest just feels like something that's going to come back to bite us. We'll talk more about that at the end of the pod. They start the year in classic FCS to FBS fashion, playing a big box FBS school in their own state. They play the college football playoff participant from 2024, Arizona State. They no longer have our favorite Sac State running back, who's just a beast. He's on the Giants now, but they still have Sam Levitt. They're still a talented team. They did okay. I didn't get to watch the entire game. I watched like extended highlights, and it was 24-13, like midway through the 3rd. Now, Arizona State's probably not as good as Washington this year, but maybe. So their FBS comp, they did better. The final score is 38-19. Ty Pennington is okay. It doesn't, this is their quarterback we'll chat about. Utah State week 2 and Southern Utah are the next 2 results that we also have played. So these are very prevalent results, and I'll kind of get your thoughts on these before we go to the last 3 games. So 38-31 in Flagstaff. They come away with the victory against Utah Tech. So a 7-point margin, the exact same margin as us. We won, of course, 31-24. This was a game where they were up 31-10 at half, and Utah Tech comes storming back. I mean, they score with 5 minutes left, so they had a chance to tie it. Opposite of us, we were down by a ton to Utah Tech and then stormed back to win it. Southern Utah in Cedar City, a game that I watched almost the whole game live. Barn burner, 52-49. I remember Nick King talking about this because we ended up playing Southern Utah the next week, and just explosive offense, tons of passing by Ty Pennington, which we'll talk about, and defense that, like a lot of defenses, has struggled with the Southern Utah offense, but struggled more than we did. We gave up 34. The last touchdown was garbage time to Southern Utah. Then you go to a game in Incarnate Word, which was, it's a hot FCS type school. Oh, Incarnate Word. Look out for Incarnate Word, another Texas team. They're going to be the real deal. We ran into some parents in freezing cold South Dakota last year, and they win by 7. I am going to finish because I forgot to go to you, and then I'll get your thoughts on the season. They go to Portland, Oregon. They play Portland State, 31-17 game. I did not watch this game, but 2-touchdown win on the road against a mediocre Big Sky team. And then last week in like a Big Sky game of the week, ranked versus ranked opponent against Montana State. They had them at home at the Finley Toyota Field, and they go up early. They're up 7-0 after the first quarter. And then Taco Dowler, who's a dude, returns a punt like 90 yards. That running back, Julius Davis, jumps over a dude and trucks 2 guys into the end zone. Sports Center. Yeah, top 2 play. And it's pretty dominant 34-10 win for Montana State. So 4-2. They're coming to UC Davis Health Stadium on Saturday, 4 p.m. kickoff. Brewfest, football alumni tailgate, APP family day. Going to be amazing. But Dwight, those 6 results, what stands out to you?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear like your answer to the same, Brock. But it's interesting. I mean, the teams that they beat, their 4 wins, have a cumulative 4 wins on the season. Utah Tech's 1-5, Southern Utah's 1-5, UIW 2-3, and then Portland State, no wins. At the same time, two of those teams we played, right, and played them close as well. So it's hard to make too much of their record. I think more comes to light when we look at the offense and look at the defense. But it's certainly seems to be a team that's still finding their way, has won some close games to opponents that have not won a ton of games. And so like doing that same analysis of our schedule probably shows like a little bit of a mixed bag as well, like because of some of the late scores, some of the games are closer than they actually were. So I don't know. I think, ultimately, even that first game against Arizona State, like pretty impressive. It's more of a comparable to me, our game against Cal last year, first game of the season. We played Washington, third game in, right? So I don't want to put too much on that. They obviously have pieces and they're a program that's been building, coming off a great year last year, a great finish to the season last year. So not a team you can overlook. But I'm not looking at this 4-1 record or 4-2 record and shaking in my boots at all.
Well, I think it's interesting to me that they have a coach in his second year, and he's originally, or the last stop he made was at Pittsburgh State, which is a Division II school. I've actually been to that stadium for a game in the past. It's in Kansas, if I'm not mistaken. And he brings Ty Pennington with him, who's the quarterback, who was the Big Sky newcomer of the year last year, rushed for like 500 yards last year as a quarterback, only threw for like 2,200, 13 touchdowns, 1 pick last year, and runs for another 7. 6'2", 215, originally from the state of Oklahoma, played his high school ball out there, and is Big Sky newcomer of the year and leads them to 8 wins. And they lose to, I believe, Stephen F. Austin first round, but they make the show. Only 24 out of 120 teams or whatever there is in FCS now make the show. They're one of the 24. They squeaked in. They were the it team for preseason Big Sky. Maybe I would say dark horse team. And even Megan Robinson a couple weeks ago talked about NAU, look out for NAU. And so with all of that in mind, what I'm seeing here from the body of work, and I love how we're getting a body of work now. We get some stuff to watch. We get some stuff to look at. We see some tendencies. They look to be around the same as last year. It's different the way it's going, the way it's happening. And I think I'll segue this into offense and we'll kick it into defense after this. But like for me, what I'm seeing is a team that offensively has had success against lower tier defenses, just like we have. I think it's a team offensively that has struggled to run the ball this year a bit more. Even someone like Ty Pennington, like he's got 100 yards rushing. Now sacks account for a lot of that. So he's probably got about 150 yards of real rushing. But I mean, he had 500 yards with sacks last year. So he's down. And he ran it 10 times last week against Montana State. And I think he had like 30, 40 yards. So just didn't pop any. And the 2 backs they have, they're like 215-pound guys. One of them's from Santa Barbara. The other one is from the South. Like, haven't popped off the screen to me when I've watched him. It's really been Pennington through the air. And, he's got 1,500 yards throwing the football in 6 games. We played 12 games. Do the math. He's got 15 and change. So he's on pace to throw for 1,000 yards more this year than he did last year. He's on pace to run for like 250 yards less than he did last year. So what is that? Is there injury concerns? Is there a development of him as a passer? But this is a guy who came from Pittsburgh State with his coach, got the job on day one. They have their top receiver is also a Pittsburgh State transfer. And if you remember, Dwight, last year, like they had tons of transfers. It was a new coach who was going into the portal and bringing a lot of guys from his school and a lot of guys just from other FCS schools or FBS schools. And this year, they lost 14 transfers in the portal going out, 8 of them to the FBS, 6 of them to the FCS, and they had 12 transfers come in. So it wasn't like we're restocking the cupboard. They did that last year. And the guys that they brought in, like there's no big name guys who are standing out to me. A couple New Mexico State kids, a receiver from Stanford, but he hasn't even been one of the guys getting a lot of burn from them on that side of the ball. So I think for me, they got one receiver who's explosive, 20 yards a carry, a couple running backs who are not flashy, and a quarterback who has had success through the air. And they go downfield, Dwight. Like they push the ball downfield. They throw deep. And so when we think about Rex Connors, I'm saving it. We'll go there in a second. Talk to us about what you've seen. You can touch on the offense if you want, but more so on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, they can put up numbers. I mean, that's clear. And some of the highlights I've seen, both with, even though they haven't run consistently well, like they've got guys and they can pop for plays and catch the ball out of the backfield. And Ty Pennington is a great player. He's just a great player, great distributor, accurate passer at all levels, right? Deep ball, medium, and short range. So I mean that's though when you look at those scores of the games they won, and you look at what the other teams were able to put up, and that's when you start to look at the defense. Coming into the year, they had a couple Big Sky all-conference guys, both I think first team and honorable mention in the linebacking core and the D line. And I remember when we played them last year, they had some dudes, they had some disruptive dudes on the defensive front that gave us a bit of trouble, even though we ended up handling business. Was that last year or the year before?
I know. I was going to say, I'm almost certain we did not play them last year. Let me do a quick look.
I think it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. What I'm seeing as now it's just.
Yeah, we didn't play him last year. I'm certain we didn't play him last year.
We didn't.
So they had some guys coming into the year with some expectations. From what I've been able to see, the performance on the D line and in the linebacking core has not necessarily matched the expectations from a numbers perspective on pass rush, sacks, pressures, and then just tackles. They do have some standout guys. Travis Arena is a guy we should be looking at from the linebacking core, and then Micah Carrion, I think I'm pronouncing the name right, a D lineman. I don't know if he's been injured. Couldn't find a ton of stats or clips of him, but I know he was named preseason all-conference. Linebacker Brandon Wong, and then another defensive lineman whose name I won't say because I will absolutely butcher it, Brock Galvin style. So yeah, I think that but what I do see is what looks to be a pretty dynamic secondary and opportunistic secondary. They've forced some takeaways, had some interceptions that looked pretty awesome. Some interceptions just fall in your lap. Some of the ones I saw were great plays by folks in the secondary. So I'm really interested to see how Caden Pinnock and co and this receiving group that we talked about with the performance in the Cal Poly game. Obviously probably has room to improve, and I'm sure the film will show that. But to see that the pass catching cohort for Davis continue to level up against what looks like a really opportunistic secondary and a good tackling secondary, I think will be one of the keys to the game. In addition to, obviously, we look at, they've allowed decent running performances against them. And so you talk about it all the time. You got to be able to run it in October. You got to be able to run it in Bozeman in November. And so I'm looking at this game as well to, last game, I think, and overall in the season, Brock, I think we have an even split of passing and running first downs. Like we've really put together a balanced offensive attack when it comes to like how we're moving down the field. And I'd like to see that balance reflected again in this game where we have all the options at our disposal. Obviously, the game, how the game goes might dictate that. If we get behind early, if we get up early, that's going to dictate some of how the game plan is called. But I really look at this defense, and I think we have a real opportunity against a defense that's it's bent and broken in some cases, but I think it looks like their approach is similar, the bend don't break, and we'll beat them out on offense, get the ball back to our guys. I think we have a real opportunity to showcase another complete offensive performance. I think that's what it'll take, because as you outlined, they have a really potent offense. So I think it's going to come down to our ability to get to the end zone, as it does every game, but especially in this game, our offense's ability to sustain drives, to put up points.
We talked a lot about last year, and actually Coach Blau mentioned it, I think on last week, one of his press conferences, the early season red zone struggles. And, when you don't have certain problems like that in a season, you don't remember what it was like the previous year. And the reality is we've been much more efficient in the red zone. Hunter Ridley's actually missed, I think, 2 extra points now. I don't know if one of them was against Mercer, and so that doesn't count. But it hasn't been quite what he's used to. And yet I don't think it's had an impact on any of the games. And he also is just the man and came up and took a selfie with Easton pregame, which was just amazing. The amount of pregame interaction that Easton had for the Cal Poly game was just like on cloud 9, and he's 5.5, so he's remembering it all. Like, I'm just vicariously living through him. He literally, this is a total tangent. This is ADHD Brock coming up pretty clutch right now. He goes, "That guy's my favorite," pointing at William Fowler, who's a DB out of Fresno. And he goes, number 12, number 12. The dude like heard it or something, and he just comes over and like dabs up Easton, which was awesome. But I think
Easton had full access, man. It was him. He had the same level of access as Rocco. Like, it was Easton hanging out with Rocco DeLuca on the sideline.
It was Easton and Rocco, and they both have cool names, so I love it. I think getting into now a little bit of like the Davis side of things and what we see from this game. Northern Arizona is going to be a challenge. They're anywhere from 12 to 15 in the various outlets that you can see ranking wise. And yet I think the top 5 to 7 teams of FCS are head and shoulders above the rest of FCS. And I think we're right on the fringe there. I don't think we've shown ourselves to be at the North Dakota State level. They've just been insane. And I wonder about even a Montana State level at this point. But the good news is we got time before we have to play them. We're playing the Lumberjacks. And, we haven't played them for a couple of years. I did look it up. We played them 2 years ago at their place, and Miles Hastings threw for a bunch of yards. Trent Tompkins, Davis had big touchdown receptions, long touchdown receptions. But that was a shocking loss. We were 4-3 going into the game, and they were 2-5 going into the game, and we lose 38-21. in a game that probably kept us out of the FCS playoffs in Dan Hawkins' last year as a coach. The year before is when we played him in Davis, and I think we destroyed him. But for me, I do think this is a different regime for Northern Arizona. They have confidence. They have won the games that they have supposed to have won at this point, and so we're gonna have a test on our hands. Like I look at the defensive side of the ball, and I look at our secondary, and going back to the point I wanted to make earlier, and Rex Connors, his best traits, at least from my vantage point, was his ability to fill and make tackles and be a really physical safety. Now, he could cover. I would say his strength was run game support and physicality and leadership. And when you have a star like that, it makes other people better because it's almost like a mental security blanket knowing he's out there. And yet people understand this, and our listeners understand this. Like, we have a very talented secondary, and we have a talented secondary from a pass defensive standpoint. I think Bo Kelly and Cal Poly had 270-yard day in the air last Saturday in slow, but they have a good pass offense. And it was, I think it was a challenge, but our goal was probably not to let Michael Briscoe do his thing, and he didn't. And so I think this week, Dwight, like, they have a receiver who literally is averaging 18 yards a catch and almost 500 yards receiving in 6 games. That's a 1,000-yard season ready to happen. Colby Katzis, he's another Pittsburgh State transfer. And Isaiah Eastman is the next guy up. He only has 11 catches, but he's averaging 18 yards a catch too. So they go deep. They go over the top. They have another guy who's got 2 catches for 80 yards and a 40-yard touchdown. Like, they got guys who can make plays. And I think for me, it's going to come down to the secondary. And I think it gets back to what Nick King has really liked about this year is the pass rush pre-Cal Poly was elite. Can we get back to that against a Northern Arizona team that is going to put the ball in the air? Can we get Trent and Rain and Sam and Jacob and Jake Williams, who's getting playing time in there, some burn to do something? I even saw McCray Madruga playing that edge position a little bit. He's a San Ramon kid who hasn't played a ton in his career, but Cal High, another good program there. And so that's what I'm looking at from the defensive side of the ball. And then I will say, Nate Richena, the grad transfer from Cal, and Jackson Severs are going to get a lot of playing time and are going to get challenged in the passing game. Like, they're going to want, you mentioned it, like the backs out of the backfield have made some plays. I think those guys have done really well against the run. I think Nate's made a couple interceptions, but I think that's an area that I think could test us. So that's what I'm looking for on the defensive side. What are you looking at for the Davis offense?
Well, that was one of the questions I had, Brock, is, obviously the reflection on the Cal Poly game was, their offensive performance was a little Miles Hastings, UC Davis offense-esque of getting the ball out quick. Maybe it's that, a good concept. It's that first read. And I'm curious, to your point, if our secondary can cause Pennington, who is obviously those receivers are great, but it's also Ty Pennington putting the ball in the right spots, and throwing people open and all that. If, we can cause Pennington to go to that second read or flip field and give our D line that extra half second to get home. It just seemed like Cal Poly was getting the ball out super quick and making it hard, and guys got close. I remember Daryl Porter got really close one time. But that feels like a key to your point of the D line getting the pass rush up and going, especially if they're looking to go deep, which often can be a longer developing play.
Yeah, and then let's look at offensively, Dwight. We had just had Caden Pinnock win back-to-back Big Sky Player of the Week awards. We had the receivers have their first kind of breakout game. We talked about that. And yet the running game kind of struggled against Cal Poly. What are your keys for the offense to have a successful day against the NAU defense that I would say has been a bit leaky?
Yeah, I mean, I think I spoke to it a little bit earlier, but just the balance of the offensive attack, establishing the run early, and then allowing that to open up passing lanes and running lanes for Caden Pinnock, right? I think if he continues on this trajectory, he's gonna have another 5 to 10 unscheduled runs, right? That he's gonna create. So hopefully that continues to be something we can count on. And then also, it was interesting last week, there was only a couple that looked like they were planned runs for Pinnock. So that's just something I'm clocking, and is interesting to me as the season evolves, as the offense continues to gel. What role, if any, like the planned QB keeper play is folded in or not into our offensive game plan. I think that that could be something that might be interesting to see in this game, where their defense is queuing off of the Cal Poly, looking at how all their receivers did and really queuing on that, and then obviously they'll see Caden and what he did, so I'm sure they'll have something in their game plan around how to try and manage Caden Pinnock. But I think it always comes back to the same thing, Brock. It's the boys up front, right? The run blocking and the pass protection has to continue to stay solid. Sounds like we, have some other guys coming into the rotation even there. So a huge opportunity for that O-line group and tight ends to continue, gelling and solidifying themselves as not only Caden Pinnock's protectors, but the lane openers for Vargas and for Fisher. And then, I think it'll be an interesting battle to watch, whoever's catching the ball this week, Batu, Dobbins, Jones, Hennessy, whoever else it might be, tight ends, and how they hold up against the pass defense in the linebacking core and in the secondary for the Lumberjacks. And then special teams, man. I mean, I think we just got to continue like being solid. I mean, there were some Cal Poly game, there were a couple punts. I was like, what's going on? There were some pretty good ones.
True.
So that punt return, obviously Taco Dowler ran one back. So, hopefully there'll be opportunity for our guy Kalani Riddick, whoever else is returning punts. But I think again, they've shown to be an opportunistic team on defense. I think I'd love to see us grow in our defense's ability to turn the ball over, be opportunistic in that way, and our special teams ability to be solid when you need to be solid, but also create turnovers and create points.
Yeah, really good point. I think I do kind of naturally lose sight of special teams. Every time Kalani Riddick gets his hands on the ball, one, he catches the ball in traffic really well. I think you can tell a punt returner's confidence by the way they handle oncoming traffic. And so he catches the ball in traffic and is fine. It kind of reminds me of Isaiah Thomas was a guy, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, who I thought was a good punt returner for us. And he would do the same thing. He could handle guys coming on him and still make a play afterwards. And so I think having that, even like a 10, 12-yard return, that's a nice field shift for Coach Plow and Caden Pinnock in the offense. I think I am going to punt, speaking of special teams, on the playoff possibilities for those who haven't read the title on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. We have a couple Aggie Pack MCs who graced the virtual podcast studio with us, and they're hella entertaining. Shout out Jimmy Kunkel. And they really are all about UC Davis athletics and UC Davis football, and bring in more students to the game. And what better way to preview a homecoming game after back-to-back massive UC Davis Health Stadium crowds than to bring on guys who know how to fill the seats. And so that is on the way. And we do want people to stick around for that because it's a beastly interview. So make sure you got a good drive ahead of you. Or you can get a pump on. You know, Jimmy, speaking of Jimmy Kunkel, who hates when I say hella, he gets a morning pump, and that's when he's doing this. I would say it's
That's how he
before.
stays looking so svelte.
That's right. He's a burly man. I would say at this point, Dwight, we need to give our Buckhorn Meat Co. score predictions, and I will pass the mic to you.
Yeah, and as I load that up, I would just say, like, you know, look forward to seeing everyone out at the game, you know, especially alums come through. There's an alumni reception put on by the Krieger family, Bob Krieger, who's on for the episode we did about a month back up on the Krieger Terrace of the Edward Family Athletic Center. And it'll just be a great time. So come on out to see a UC Davis victory that comes in the form of a 42-21 contest. That's my score prediction. UC Davis 42, Lumberjacks 21.
I like it. We have played 5 games that counted this year. We scored 10 points against Washington. We scored 50 points against Southern Utah. We scored 34 points against Weber State, and we scored 34 points against Cal Poly. Final score from UC Davis Health Stadium, UC Davis 34, Northern Arizona 17. Defense for me has had a good second half against Southern Utah, a good 4 quarters against Weber State, and a good 4 quarters against a challenging Cal Poly team that we played without our 2 best players for the very first time. I think the defense continues to get better under Coach Coombs, and I think this is a game that starts to reveal more of who we are as a team. And I think Michael Lee, who's one of our guests, says it well. Like, we are a top 5 to 6 to 7 team in the country at the FCS level, and we'll show it on Saturday. So the Brewfest starts at 1 p.m. at Bob Biggs practice field. The Krieger family football alumni, which just RSVP, food and drinks included, pretty sweet deal, starts at 1 p.m. as well. The kids will be out. We'll be running around. I wish I could make a cool video. Like, I'm going to be obsessing about wishing I could do that all week, but I can't because the kids are there. But it'll still be fun. We'll have a blast, and looking forward to seeing everyone there. Make sure to stick around for our exclusive sit down virtually with Michael Scotts, and you will hear more about the past, present, and future of UC Davis football fandom. But Dwight, I'll see you on Saturday, man.
All right, brother.
The Aggie Football Fund provides essential gap funding for the UC Davis football program, empowering the team to access vital resources for player development and program success. It also reconnects and engages former football alumni to maintain the legacy of Aggie pride and perpetuity. Through direct and flexible support, the AFF bridges funding gaps while fostering a thriving alumni community. Visit AggieFootballFund.com for more information. Aggie Pride is proud to partner with JG Graphics in Rancho Cordova, the spot for custom apparel, embroidery, and printing. Aggie alum Pete Povey and his team helped us design and produce our Aggie Pride hats, and the quality is next level. If you need gear for your business, team, or next big event, Pete will take care of you from first idea to final stitch. Support a fellow Aggie and check them out at jg.graphics or visit their shop in Rancho Cordova. This episode is sponsored by the Larison Real Estate Team, Bob and Jan Larison. You already know the name. They've been incredible supporters of UC Davis football, this podcast, and of course, they're Land's parents, now cheering him on as he suits up for the New England Patriots. Off the field, Bob and Jan are one of the top real estate teams in the region, helping folks buy and sell across Idaho and Eastern Oregon. Whether it's a home, land, or investment property, they bring experience, hustle, and heart to every deal. So if you're looking to make a move or just want honest guidance, check out LarisonTeam.com or follow them on Instagram at Larison Real Estate. Huge thanks to Bob and Jan for backing Aggie Pride.
Welcome back to Aggie Pride, the UC Davis football podcast. I'm hanging out with a couple of entertaining gentlemen. It's the Michael Scott edition of the Aggie Pride podcast because we have two Aggie Pack MCs in the house. One still doing the dang thing, and that's Michael Lee, and one who did the dang thing really well, and that's Scott Judson. Michael and Scott, welcome to the pod.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks, guys. This is awesome. Takes me back to the days of walking over to then Aggie Stadium with Dwight pregame.
Man, so many good memories.
The colleges, we just happened to be walking across. He'd be going to play a football game. I'd be going to host a football game. Just be walking across. I think, Dwight, that's how we first met.
That might be the case. And I also have memories, going back to Toomey, and like the Aggie Pack in the north end zone there. And I'm sure we'll get into all that history and legacy, but it's an awesome episode. Before we started recording, I was saying that, on the podcast, we talk to a lot of people, and that list and that universe has expanded, and it's been on our list for a while to be thinking about the Aggie Pack and the fan experience. And there's a lot of exciting stuff happening now. There's a rich history that's been built upon. There's issues to address, which we'll get into, and there's like awesome energy too. So I'm really excited for the Michael Scott episode. As you both know from listening to the pod in the past, we start with the story, kind of the origin story, and then that connects to our guests' passion and love for UC Davis football. So this episode is no different. We want to start with hearing a little bit of, I would frame it as like, talk about your love for the game of football, where that came from, and then your relationship to being a super fan and guiding fans of UC Davis football, and a little bit of that journey that brings us up to the present. So we'll start with Michael, and then Scott, you can come on after.
Yeah, I knew from a little kid, I was like, I'm never gonna be a football player. But I did all the sports as a kid. I did soccer, I did baseball, I did basketball. I capped out at 5'9", so I knew I wasn't gonna be any sort of big athlete. But definitely liked watching sports. I actually reffed soccer for a little bit, so I had sports in my life from a young kid. And kind of when I was applying for colleges or whatever, I came down to Chico State and UC Davis, and my dad was like, "Oh, you got to go to Davis. They have D1 sports and that kind of thing." And I didn't realize it at the time. Like, there's a difference between Alabama FBS and UC Davis FCS. And kind of when I got there, I was like, "Oh, this is not Alabama. Like, this is kind of a little step down, but it's still the real thing." And yeah, I've been, ever since I got to UC Davis, I really enjoyed the atmosphere at the sports games, and probably a lot more than most of the students there. Like, it's not like a SEC kind of school, so you don't have like a lot of kids going there just for the sports. But I definitely enjoy it. Yeah, and I started 2019 as a student, graduated 2023, and now I'm the current MC of the Aggie Pack, and I just like it. I think Brock, you said it in a podcast a while ago, like when you're passionate about something, you go to Twitter like right after, and like you want to see what everyone's saying. And I'm like, I feel like that's with me with UC Davis. Like every 5 hours in a work day, I'm like UC Davis on Twitter, just seeing like clips of recruits or whatever, that kind of thing. Like, and you just get really passionate about it, and you want to talk to someone else about it or this kind of thing. And that's kind of the last like year or two with UC Davis football. The fandom has kind of just really exponentially grown, and I'm excited to like be here because now I have other people to talk about like UC Davis sports with.
Where's home?
Right here, Sacramento.
Oh, so you're a local guy.
I'm a local kid. Went to high school at Rio Americano. That's where Mitchell Dixon went.
Mitch.
He was our quarterback. He's having a great year. Love to see him in the tight end position. I remember I was in my living room and my mom and me were screaming at the top of our lungs when he was about to score that touchdown versus Washington. We're like, game. So yeah, I'm a local kid and I love Sac, love Davis, great city. I mean, I could retire there if I wanted to. It's just like it has everything.
Yeah, that brings a more significance to the amazing shirt you're wearing for our viewers on YouTube and
Yes.
Spotify. Michael's got a amazing Stingers Down shirt on. As a Sac native, I am also living in Sac here, but yeah, that's amazing, man. Just before we go to you, Scott, like, you had a perception of what it might be, and then you said you showed up and it it wasn't Alabama.
Oh yeah. Oh
Talk
yeah.
a little bit about that experience for you, even as a freshman, right? We just had the running of the freshmen. Kids are in their second week of the first quarter right now, or end of the
Right.
start of their second week. What was that like for you? Were you as a freshman like, I'm going to every single game I can in the fall, winter, and spring? And what was that experience like? Because I think that's part of, to me, that feels like it's even connected to why you're passionate about, leading
Right.
Aggie Pack now.
Right. Yeah, I think my first year, I think I went to like the first 2 games with my roommates. After the first quarter, they both left or they all left. Like it was kind of just me. I'm like, "What? This is like college football. We're right here." Like it's a really dense kind of stadium. Like you can see the action from anywhere kind of thing. And I remember I was looking through like Instagram or whatever, and I said like it said the Battle of the Golden Horseshoe, whatever. Like, and they hyped it up as this huge rivalry game between Cal Poly and UC Davis, this kind of thing. And I'm like, oh my god, we got to get there. The first 1,000 students get T-shirts, this kind of thing. And I remember walking over there like an hour before the game. I think earlier, like an hour and 10 minutes before the game, because they're like, oh, limited quantity T-shirts, like huge rivalry game. I get there. There's no one around the stadium. I'm like, did I get the wrong day? I then walk into the stadium. It's probably like an hour and 5 minutes to like the kickoff. And then one of the security guards is like, get out. Like, we don't open the gates till 5 minutes before, like 2 minutes before. And I was like, oh, I thought, did I get the wrong day? Like, there was no one in the stands for this quote unquote rivalry game. And my perception was definitely like, oh man, like this is not what I thought it was going to be. And in my head, I envisioned like, oh, Cal Berkeley versus Cal Davis head to head. And it just wasn't that, unfortunately. But I think now we're definitely getting a lot more fans into the stadium. I think the first 2 weeks of this specific year are really incredible. We broke the attendance record. I think it was like 17,100 something the first game. And I think it was 12,000 the second game. Those are like pretty decent numbers. Unfortunately, we're probably going to see a decline. That's just how it goes. But we can get into that later on in the podcast, things that we could fix as a athletic department.
Yeah,
Man,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Dwight, and we'll send it to Scott before I kind of start pulling out so many nuggets. This is a really fun and kind of tough subject in some ways for all of us, because it's like we care about UC Davis athletics, but like football specifically so much. It is like a storied program, not only from like a football perspective, but I mean, Scott's about to share what the Aggie Pack was like when he was there. And yet there's this like angst and frustration and hope and you sharing some of those tidbits about expectations versus reality. I mean, my wife's from East Texas, and her coming to Davis was a culture shock for her because she had heard it's Division I football as well. Her parents went to UCLA, and her high school averaged 15,000 at the games, and they went to the Texas 6A state championship her freshman year. Matt Flynn's the quarterback. They're playing in the Alamo Dome with 45,000 people. So her first game is actually a big UC Davis crowd. It's like 10,000 people, but she's like, where the heck is everyone? Is this the stadium? Is this the practice stadium or the stadium? And so lot to discuss. Scott, this is a great segue because you have more of the history and tradition than we do. So share from beginning to even now, like your journey with UC Davis football and how you got involved in the Aggie Pack.
Yeah, absolutely. Sports has always been a big part of my life. My parents tell me that I learned how to read by pulling open a newspaper. Michael, I don't know if you know what a newspaper is. It's this thing that they used to print stuff in. But opening up a newspaper and reading the box scores. And so that's how I learned to read. And I love sports. There's pictures of me as a toddler in Niners clothes and celebrating every touchdown and the Steve Young era. And yeah, there we go. Go Niners. And then growing up, played every sport I could. Grew up in Walnut Creek. So we didn't really have football. There were the Marauders there, but I didn't play. I played soccer, baseball, ended up at Northgate High School. Brock, you know that football powerhouse, Northgate High School. So powerhouse, and no offense to anyone who played there, but it, you know, Brock, you bring up your wife as an example of like going to a UC Davis game, going to Toomey, whatever. Like Toomey was an upgrade for me because Northgate didn't have a didn't have a home field.
That's right.
So we played homecoming at Mount Diablo against Mount Diablo.
Yep.
You know, we'd play at DVC. And when I got to Northgate, I too was refereeing soccer. That was my primary job all through middle school, high school, and beyond. Did a lot of youth refereeing. Got to travel the country to ref, and got to. I had a friend who was playing freshman football, and they needed a PA announcer, and my friend's mom, who's close friend, said, "Hey, I got someone for you." And so I ended up for all 4 years of high school being the PA announcer at Northgate football. And that got into basketball, volleyball, and both girls and boys basketball. It was the best. And then as I was looking at colleges, both my parents went to UC Davis. My dad kept in touch with Bob Franks, who was up in the higher administration. And as I committed, he sent over this note that said, "Hey, they're looking for PA announcers." So this would have been July, August before I even started. So it had been summer 2005. I take a drive up to Dobbins Stadium and do this PA tryout. And there was Greg Ortiz and Mike Dobransky, Scott Brayton, that whole gang. And they call me a couple days later and they're like, "Hey, you can PA announce whenever you'd like. We have another idea for you though. So can you drive on up?" And it was during the summer. I was working for the current law firm I'm working at now, Bold, Polisner, Maddow, Nelson, and Judson, as Mike already zinged. Long name, long pod.
Do the ad.
Long pod
Do
ad.
the ad.
Put the ad in now. No.
Big supporters.
And so I took the day, drove up, and had Zias for the first time with Dobie and Greg, and to this day, some very close friends. And they basically said, "Hey, we got this idea. We have this thing called the Aggie Pack. It's like Rallycom at Cal, except Cal stole it from us." I don't know if that's a well-known fact. It should be. Cal got the idea of the mic men, the leaders on mics from UC Davis. Shout out to my partner in crime, Chris Perry, for reminding me of that today to make sure that got on. And so they said, "Hey, we have this idea. We want you to be part of the Aggie Pack." And at that time, we were called Swampers, students working auction, marketing, and promotions. And Dwight and Brock, I don't know if you guys got to work the Aggie auction back in the day, but we did all these things. And so I was a promotions intern in athletics all 4 years. And starting freshman year basketball season, along with Chris Perry, we were the Aggie Pack MCs and leading the crowd at that time. I remember my first game at Toomey, like students lined up to get in. Part of it was for the Aggie Pack shirts. Everyone wanted an Aggie Pack shirt. It was a social event. You know, yes, we had some good teams. John Grant, quarterback, Tony Kays. That freshman year was the year we beat Stanford. And so, like, I felt my Aggie pride. Like, I learned what Aggie pride was September 17th, 2005. I hadn't even moved to the dorms yet. And I got to go to Stanford Stadium to watch us win, which was awesome. And got to be with some friends, meet some new friends like Chris Perry. And little did I know, my wife, Kristen, was there, but we hadn't met yet. And so that was then undergrad. And then I was still doing PA announcing for women's gymnastics, which I still do the PA announcing for gymnastics. I did PA announcing for fill-in for men's and women's basketball, was the main PA announcer for volleyball. And really was just getting people out to games, hyping things up. We'd go chalking when there were actually chalkboards in the classrooms, getting up at 6 a.m., writing, a hornet is a glorified mosquito all over campus, getting people out to the, hyping up the Golden Horseshoe when men's soccer made the NCAA tournament for the first time, packing that stadium for us, beating Denver at home. And it became a part of who I am. And it's turned into now, fast forwarding now, 20 years. My kids go to all things UC Davis. Tanner is obsessed with UC Davis football. And my daughter, Sydney, her current catching and hitting coach plays for UC Davis softball. They go to a lot of events, get to know a lot of the athletes. Our babysitters are from UC Davis gymnastics. Like we're all in. And then that got to me being the alumni president, which I'm now the immediate past president of the Aggie Alumni Association, and really put an emphasis on supporting athletics there. But that's a long story. But really UC Davis is part of us, to the extent that we live in Davis. And so we got to stay here, and I love it. I love Davis, and love everything that UC Davis stands for.
Yeah, that's awesome, Scott. I mean, some of that I knew, some of that I didn't. But there's like a lot of threads of similarity with my story, which, folks that have listened to the pod may have heard. And obviously I grew up in Davis, so when I hear you talk about your kids and how they're obsessed with all things UC Davis, I think about me as a kid, grew up on Miller Drive, right? So it was literally just a walk down to the Tomb. And, I want to take a little bit of time here, Scott, to stick with you and talk about the legacy of the Tomb and the Aggie Pack lore, even before your time, that you learned as you came in. Because as we know, Coach Plow's big on summoning the legacies of the Tomb, right? Like he's trying to bring that to UC Davis Health Stadium. And, so there's that connection, but also my memories as a kid, seeing that line, walking past that student line in the north end zone to where we would sit in the south end zone, hoping I'd get a shirt, but, that rarely happened. I did get Tube Sock Madness, did climb under the stands looking for the candy that fell through, did play out on A field during halftime, trying to catch touchdowns in the mud. So Scott, like talk to our listeners a little bit about the legacy of the Aggie Pack, even before your time, that I'm sure you've become a scholar in, since your immersion in all things UC Davis. Bring folks up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely. So the history of the Aggie Pack goes back to Larry Swanson, Uncle Lair, as we all call him, still around, still the PA announcer for men's basketball, was looking for a way to get students out to games and involved. And he found this one student, Scott Brayton, who basically they came up with this idea of getting a group of students excited into games. This was the Division II era, mid 90s. And so they started this group called the Aggie Pack. Around that time, UC Davis men's basketball won the Division II national championship. And it grew into a group of students who were later called Aggie Pack fanatics. And sorry, not Aggie Pack fanatics. They were the Aggie Pack extremists. They were the apes. And this is where Dwight comes in, because Dwight was probably at these games as a kid. Dwight's like shaking his head, of like, they were dressing up. So you had Indiana Aggie, you had downtown Aggie Brown, you had all these different characters, and they would put together these elaborate skits at halftime, and they became the show. And it was I wasn't here at that time, but a super awesome time that a lot of people really remember, and really harken back to, because students would show up. It was a thing. Didn't matter who we were playing. It was Division two, and we didn't know the schools. So then around 2000, I'm gonna say 2004. I got here in 2005. 2004, there was a change to not wanting it to be as much about the Aggie Pack extremists, but wanting it to be this holistic, like everyone's part of the Aggie Pack. So Mike Dobransky became the MC right around there, maybe 2003, 2004. And it became everyone was the Aggie Pack. And so at my freshman orientation, I remember Dobie up there, Greg Ortiz up there, and they were saying, "You're the Aggie Pack, get everyone hyped up. This is when we have a game," throwing out beads and candy. And I was just enthralled. This thing was amazing. And so becoming then part of the Aggie Pack and one of the leaders of the Aggie Pack, we had a group of interns, as I said, these swampers, who worked hand in glove together to put together an event that people wanted to go to. And so a lot of people saw Chris Perry and me on stage. We're in front of everyone at Toomey. But we had kind of stage directors. What was our next promotion? What was going on? And that there was something about that north end zone. Teams did not want to be going towards that north end zone where all the students were sitting. And we packed that thing. There are some awesome photos and video, grainy video at this point, but some awesome video of teams coming on there. And we beat Cal Poly there in one of our first games and claimed the Golden Horseshoe, or at least one of the first games that I was there. And it was home. It was, I don't have the history that Dwight had, but I remember standing in line for those bathrooms underneath the press box. And yes, love UC Davis Health Stadium, but there was something about Toomey. And especially coming from Northgate High School, where we didn't have a field. It was so cool for me to have a place that I could watch football and enjoy football. And so I think Toomey definitely had that history going way back. Think of every single famous or quasi-famous UC Davis football player you've heard of. I mean, Kenny O'Brien, Morosky, all these guys played at Toomey. And it was this cool thread that we then tried to take over to the stadium when we built it. And I think we can all agree it was time to move over to the stadium. But there were definitely some cool aspects, and we tried to bring the Aggie Pack just right over to UC Davis Health Stadium, or then Aggie Stadium.
Yeah, that's awesome. Brock, I'll kick it over to here, but I think it's good to pay homage to the tomb. There's just what it was, I think, some practical realities, like where it was, like literally right on Russell, right on the border of downtown and campus, right next to kind of Frat Row. Like it was a great location. And then there's all this history and all this lore. So I appreciate you kind of taking us down that historic path. And yes, absolutely, with growth comes change, and literal change in location. But I think part of this conversation is about how, through the leadership that's even reflected on this call between Michael Scott, there's some things that we've continued over the years and look to build on. So Brock, I'll pass it over to you here.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me because I grew up in the Bay, grew up a Cal fan. Cal was just becoming good for really the first time in forever. when I was like entering high school, the Tedford era, and they had good crowds. I remember going to like my middle school, high school is going to watch like Deshaun Jackson return a punt 70 yards against Tennessee in front of 70,000 at Memorial Stadium. There's 25,000 Rocky Top fans on the south end zone. And so I don't have that same nostalgia, truth be told. Like, I didn't play at Toomey. I never saw a game at Toomey. My junior year or senior year, when I was getting recruited by various schools, I remember Comcast Sports Bay Area, which was a sports channel back in the day before, I don't know, they rebranded, was showing a game at UC Davis at Toomey. And I remember really wanting to get an offer from Cal and being like really disappointed I didn't have any FBS offers. Like, what the heck? All these coaches came to games and recruited me, and I got all these handwritten letters. Like, when is this offer going to come? Like, I had all the accolades. Like, what the heck? And so I'm watching this UC Davis game, like kind of like hoping I don't go there. Truth be told, like, do not want to go to UC Davis. Like, and so it doesn't have that same thing. And I think that's a bridge back to Michael Lee, which is like this differing expectations, and when you came in, Michael, you've talked about like it just didn't necessarily add up originally, but something got you to hang around, and you shared offline. Maybe becoming the sports marketing intern was one of those moments, but share with us like kind of your journey of getting involved more in athletics, like becoming the MC at one point, and even how like you're still doing it. Yeah, would be really interested to just kind of hear that from you.
Yeah. I started my sophomore year. I was looking for some sort of internship, and I think this was around 2020, 2021. It was kind of like the COVID year of school, and you couldn't really do anything. So I was like, all right, let's have an online internship. And I joined this Aggie Pack UC Davis sports marketing and mascot internship kind of thing, like this catch all of kind of the supporting cast or the behind the scenes people in the at UC Davis athletics department, specifically football and basketball games. I'm like, oh, this sounds right up my alley. Um, and I started off kind of just at football games, like manning the kids zone and like handing little basketballs to kids or a little soccer ball to kick into a net. And I'm like, this is not really what I signed up for. And kind of at the end of yeah, it was not good. But kind of at the end of the internship that year, my boss took me into her office. She's like, "So, how did you like the internship?" I'm like, "Well, it could have been better." And she's like, "Okay, so like, what do you want to do?" I was like, "I want to kind of do the Aggie Pack." And at the time, there was this kid named Josh, and he was kind of doing it. And they're like, "Oh yeah, he could always use some help down there." So I was like, "All right." So then the next season, I did that, and I loved it. I think what made me like it was the fans themselves. They kind of just accepted me with open arms. And I remember like my first year, that was probably my favorite year doing it. Somehow someone wanted to know my name. So I was like, "Oh, Michael." And then you just have like 500 kids chanting, "Michael, Michael." And even my mom was at the top of the stands. They're like, "Michael's mom," and the little clap. And I'm like,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I could get used to this kind of thing. It was almost like an ego boost, which is kind of bad to say, but that's kind of how I grew. And this whole time I was an unpaid intern. The marketing department at UC Davis, at least when I was a student, like it was probably one of the only positions that you didn't get paid. Um, so I just did it for fun. I'm like, I would go to the games. Like my roommates aren't coming with me. Like I would go to the games myself. But now I have like a whole like crowd with me coming to the games, kind of. Um, and as an alumni, I still wanted to do it, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't really have anyone that will do it." So I was like, "All right, I'll come." So for the next 2 years as an alumni, I think it was the 2023 season and the 2024 season, I did it again as an kind of like an unpaid volunteer. Um, and then kind of towards the end of last year's basketball season, I also am a part-time MC for the basketball, or I guess the in-game MC, kind of what Darius does for football. And I go up to the director of like ticketing and marketing. I'm like, hey, I'm probably losing like $100 every couple months just with parking and gas money. You think you could pay me like a little bit? Like, they're like, I thought you were a student. Like they didn't even know. Like so I was like, they're like, yeah, we can get you. We can get you a little something. So very grateful
Wait,
that they
can we stop this here? I have a problem with this payment thing you're talking about. Uh, we were paid in Woodstock's pizza before the game. Now, I don't even know if it was paid. Maybe we
Oh
took the
no.
pizza. I don't know.
Oh,
But
it's
it
the
was,
same nowadays. Same
yeah,
nowadays.
Woodstock's pizza before the game. Every Thursday and Saturday before basketball games, either Woodstock's or it was then Original Steve's. This is now Steve's Pizza.
Yeah.
And occasionally we'd sneak in and take some gift cards or like gift things, to In-N-Out Burger, or something would be lying around that we would,
Occasionally?
that was our payment.
Occasionally?
You want to know how much Hunan we ate? Hunan was a great sponsor of UC Davis Athletics. No free ads, but so sorry, not to cut you off, but
No.
that was kind of part of the lore of working for us. Like we were just this group of kids. We'd be on the stage, like not getting paid. Total ego boost. Total ego boost. I'd be on a date with my wife. They'd be like, "Are you the Aggie Pack guy?"
Oh yeah.
But yeah, sorry, not to cut you off, but it's just
Well, and
I'm
it's
gonna have to have a talk with Danielle Shank about this payment thing.
okay, but see, that's
Where's
interesting
my NIL
because
money?
we have Michael, who's now 2-3 years post grad, right? And I think that is part of the, and we can meander back and forth. We can be nostalgic, and we can also be excited for the present, the big crowds that we're experiencing right now, and some of the positives. Then we can also like weave back into some of the trials and the failed expectations that we're all really familiar with. So yeah, I guess I would stick with you, Michael, and ask like, for yourself, like when you think about like, hey, the answer you were given was, we don't have anyone else to do this. Um, if students are passionate enough about UC Davis athletics and football specifically, since we're a football podcast, like why do you think like there wasn't someone who just stepped up on their own accord? Like Dwight and I weren't asked to do this. We're just passionate about UC Davis football, so we started this. And yet there was no one to fill your shoes. And so I'm kind of interested in just your thoughts on like doing it now, not being a student. Like you are an alum doing it, still looks like you're having a good time and all that. And then I also want your thought on like when you hear about the Tomb days and the history of the Aggie Pack kind of being in fuego in the late 2000s and early 2010s potentially, like what does that kind of do to your soul, your fan soul? I guess those two questions. I know it's meaty, but that's how we roll.
Yeah. So probably like the first question, it doesn't tick me off, but I'm like, come on now, get excited. Once I get passionate about something, I can't not be passionate about it. So when you like something, you want other people to like it too. You kind of just look kind of weird if you're the only one that's passionate about UC Davis football. And for a while, I thought I was like that too. Like, there's no one passionate. What the heck? And then kind of the Aggie Pack introduced me to like this group of fans. Like, there's a lot of people don't know this, but there's like a select group of 10 or so guys that have consistently gone to every single football game and are in the first row of the Aggie Pack every game. And, there's some other regulars and stuff like that, but there's a regular group. And that's what I feel like a lot of people don't know. Like, there are people that really do like UC Davis football. And then there's
Mhm.
people there that are just there to pregame the frat parties or the bar scene in Davis. But yeah, I really kind of like hearing the old kind of stuff. Every lunch break, not every lunch break, every week or two, I go on YouTube and I look at the UC Davis Farm versus Farm, the Stanford game, and man, that little documentary that if you haven't watched it on YouTube, it's like a UC Davis versus Stanford, and I think it was one of the Bobs, either Biggs or whoever the coach was, and you got to see the locker room, like alumni, pregame, and then this insanely awesome like radio call of the touchdown at the end of the game. And man, I just turn that on like every month or so, and it makes me smile. Like just hearing like, oh, there was a time when like our fans would go to other stadiums, we'd
Mhm.
pack it out and cheer on a team and upset like a really good Stanford football team. So yeah, I really like hearing the old stuff. It makes me want to like continue that legacy, um, and like make the Larry Swanson stage. That's what they call it now, packed with Aggie Pack fans.
Hmm.
Well, I mean, there's a side of me that initially when you said there's those regulars was like, oh, that's so cool, and that makes sense. And then there's a part of me that's like, 10? Like,
Yeah,
like, so the Michael Scott question for both of you is like, when we talk about pain points, areas for growth, and we're off to a great start this year, right? How do we turn that 10 to 20 into 1,000 to 2,000 regulars?
yeah,
That's such a great question. Like we had the same thing, right? So this is something that we had back in 2005, 2006, 2007. We had the regulars. We had even some counter groups like the Aggie Stampede. I think they actually started as like the Stew Squad for Gary Stewart, who was our men's basketball coach before Jim Les. But definitely the regulars, and that's how we got our interns. Shout out Steffi Brickovich, then Lindsay Sasaki, now Lindsay Longman. Like we got people in that way. Tommy Wolf, Marcus Tang, got a ton of people involved. And for us, the regulars, it just kept growing because we had things that people wanted to do. May not have even been the game, but we had a ton of giveaways. And I know budgeting's different, right? We had a lot of budget in trade of Tandem Properties, printing out, 5,000 Aggie Pack shirts or a bunch of candy, or Davis Sports Shop, rest in peace, giving us tube socks and stuff like that. But we just made it an event. And I don't mean this in a cocky way, but I can't imagine what that group of students, and the super fans like Kai Reese and others would do 2004, 5, 6, 7. If we had this football team, if we had the team that Coach Hawk created, and now that Coach Plow is perpetuating, oh geez, it would be so much fun. We packed the stadium when Ramsey Barden put up, like something like 4 touchdowns. Sorry, Dwight, I think you might have played in that game. But it would just be so much fun. And so the pressure points, it depends on of what the focus wants to be. And I think there was a time that the athletic department necessarily had to shift the focus away from students, because everything was student centric, to the alums, to donors, and get them back in. And I think Coach Hawk was kind of the galvanizing force to really, finish that job. I know it's still working on it, but Kevin Blue and Rocco worked really hard on that. And Danielle Shank and I have talked a lot about that. And now we're there. We got the alumni support. I mean, we have a podcast. Look at that. We have all these players who were players when I was a student, who played with Coach Plow, who played with you guys, coming back and supporting. I'm traveling up to Seattle with family and meeting up with Patrick Michelet and seeing all these guys. And so we got the alumni support, and now it's back to the students. How do we get the students? And Michael, you and Jack and Danielle and the whole crew, like, are now starting to really make that push. And it's little stuff, I feel like, that's making UC Davis Health Stadium super special. Like having the Chicago Bulls theme song, I don't even remember what it's called, Sirius or something like that. Like going as the team's walking to the tunnel, little stuff like that gets people coming back. Having Michael on stage, getting everyone ready. Darius getting everyone on their feet. it's those types of things that make people want to come back. We were making the pregame videos on our personal computers, and they were grainy and horrible, and you know we had we got as good as we could get. Shout out Bakari Grant for recording many different takes of that. But now we have everything we need. The budget has grown so much, and I know we're still doing everything on a shoestring, as Michael could probably tell you, but it's ready. Chancellor May calls us a sleeping giant. We're a volcano ready to blow. And it's so cool to see what Michael's done now, getting the students there, and really getting Aggie Stadium pumped.
Yeah. It's interesting. On the way back from SLO, I listened to a podcast with Dr. Luke Wood, highly esteemed doctor of Sac State president. That is so interesting because he joined the Grizz Fan Pod, which is Montana's one of their 7 football fan podcasts. And they're 2.5 hour long episodes. I've not gone through it and listened to them much, but I'm just trying to find something on the way home because my kids are making us pull over every 45 minutes on the way back from SLO. And I'm like, he joined the Grizz Fan Pod. And I'm just listening to him talk about Sac State and their ambition and him giving the plan. We will be playing FCS schedule next year. And essentially, they will not be in the FBS. They will be an independent in the FCS, and he has communicated they will play an FBS schedule. So maybe they're playing, Kent State and Middle Tennessee or something. But when we talk about this volcano that's about to explode, I'm just really interested in kind of everyone's thoughts. Dwight, you two, are we fixed from the issues that we feel like we've seen the last 7 to 8 years? Okay, Hawk comes in. Okay, Plow comes in. We go to the FCS playoffs last year. We won a Big Sky title a handful of years ago. We've had a couple big crowds to start the year. Do we feel like we've fixed this? Or because if a volcano is about to explode, then we're right there. So I know that's a big idea. And maybe we'll just go down the line. Dwight, I think I will ask you to start, and then we'll go from Michael to Scott, because that's how you say Michael Scott.
No, I'm really actually curious to hear, Michael, your thoughts, even connected back to the previous question of what does it take to get from 10 regulars to 1,000 regulars? And it sounds like from what Scott shared, from what you shared, there is a lot of thought and effort being put into that. So want to hear about that too, I think in connection to your answer to Brock's question. But, I think that, I'm really excited about homecoming. And you said, Michael, there might be a dip. Let's hope you're wrong. But just because Sai's been out of the country, I didn't get to feel those first 2 crowds, right? So I'm excited to feel UC Davis Health Stadium 2025 season, right? My gut is, Brock, that from what I've heard here, from what I've observed this year and some of the stuff last year, we have to define what fixed looks like. And I don't know that there is a clear goal, right, that's been set out that we're pushing towards. And so I would say there's been progress. My sense, there's been progress, but it doesn't meet the bar of what we might be shooting towards. So that's kind of my outside. Haven't seen the crowds this year, haven't felt it this year, but have the history of feeling I remember last year, Brock, it was this is such a cool family environment, right? How do we bring in the alumni component and bring in the student environment component and help that all work together? In my mind, that might be the goal. Can we do something that maybe no one else in the country does the way we do? Families want to come with their kids to roll on the berm. Students want to come to get fired up by Michael and like go crazy in the front row. And alums want to come back to see a great football product. How do we bake that all together to have a rock in UC Davis Health Stadium? So that's my thought. Michael.
Yeah. I tend to be a little pessimistic just because I have such high standards for the potential of the athletic department. But I think it is trending in the right direction. Kind of when I entered as a freshman, I didn't see a lot of fans in the stadium. And now every year I've been a part of the program, the first game back, we're breaking the attendance record. And I think the athletic department has done a great job. They've integrated it into the freshman orientation week. I don't know who did that, but whoever came up with that idea needs a raise because that instantly brings probably 6,000 more fans or 5,000 more fans that would have not come. So I think that's a great addition. The running of the first years, I don't know how long UC Davis has been doing that, but that's a great like week 2 home game. And I think a lot of the fix, just from a fan perspective, can just be settled down into logistics. If you look at the first 3 weeks, I don't know if this was on purpose, but they were all away games. And I'm hoping that it was on purpose. Because the Big Sky, it's not the SEC. You can have a little leeway in like creating your own schedule. Like, it really doesn't have a lot to do with media rights because UC Davis is not really on ESPN all too often as a home game. So you can pretty much dictate the schedule. So they were really smart in having 3 road games. That lets the students come, and the first game back, there's 17,000 fans. The second game, it's the new Lake Tahoe T-shirts, and there's 12,000, 13,000 fans, whatever it was. Then you start to hit the home game number 3 and home game number 4, and this is where the issues start to happen. Typically, it's either a 1 p.m. game or a 4 p.m. game. And you look at the attendance records at UC Davis Health Stadium, a 1 p.m. game, no one's showing up. I'm sorry, but like no one's going to show up to that game. UC Davis it's a science, it's a math, it's a STEM agriculture kind of institution. Kids are usually, or the college kids these days, they like to study in the morning or the afternoon. And then once they're in the evening, they go out to dinner, then they go out to the bars or something like that. Like you play on a 1 p.m. game, you're not going to get a lot of fans because when are these kids going to study, right? It's a academic institution, first of all. And that's something that will always kind of be there. This is not Alabama. This is not Florida. This is not Duke basketball kind of thing. Like people are there to study. So you get a 1 p.m. and a 4 p.m. game, you're not going to see the same attendance. So if it were me, if I was like the head of scheduling or something, I would make every game 5 p.m. or later. If you look at all the records of attendance, the top 4 happened as the first game the last 4 years. Number 5 was the Montana State game last year, and they marketed the hell out of that game. Plow like basically begged students to come to those games. Please, it's the Big Sky Championship. We need you all there. Like, please come. Like, so if you look at that trend, 7 p.m. games are our best time to start. With the caveat being like the Causeway Classic, people will inevitably show up to that game every year. So I think that's the fix. And just breaking down the bad traditions, I don't know if this was around in your day, Scott, but a lot of the student section are freshmen. And then they realize it's not cool to sit in the student section anymore. Then they sit on the grass with the juniors and the seniors and this kind of thing. So eventually what I would like to bring is like breaking down that stigma. Like everyone, let's pack the student section. Let's get hyped. Let's cheer on our team. Let's not worry about, oh, the underclassmen sit there or the upperclassmen sit there. Like, let's just all be one unit, cheer on the team that we all came here for. Yeah. Long answer, but it was a meaty question.
I was going to go in a completely different direction. But hearing that the upperclassmen don't want to sit in the Aggie Pack section, Brock, I can swear, right?
Yes, sir.
We're good? That's bullshit. Because the Aggie Pack section should be the one place where all UC Davis students come together, no matter what their major is, what their background is, where they're from, whether they know what a first down is or not. That is the place where everyone comes together. And that was one of the coolest parts about UC Davis football, UC Davis athletics. Back in my day, well, really, like, you had to be wearing a blue shirt to be in the Aggie Pack section. If you were wearing white, God forbid you're wearing green. But if you were wearing even a white UC Davis shirt, you were not allowed in the Aggie Pack section. It was exclusive. It was for students to be there. Whether you were a freshman, you were a grad student, students got in for free. You'd wear your Aggie Pack shirt or a blue shirt and you went. And so to hear that there's this, and you didn't sit. Halftime was for sitting. Quarter breaks, maybe for sitting. But you stood, you were loud, and you did it the entire game. I think there's a huge kudos to be given, Michael, to you and your crew at the first two games. Students showed up and they stayed, right? I think that was the big thing that I saw from my perch on the top of the berm with my kids, playing around, was students would show up and they'd bounce. But you got them to stay. And this team helps. Winning helps. That's the big thing of, you're talking about, well, I don't know if this was a tradition. Well, that's not a tradition. That's an excuse. A tradition is getting people to show up and knowing that before every time we take the field on offense, the MC is yelling, all right, go Ags on 3, go Ags on 3. 1, 2, 3, go Ags. Shout out Chris Perry. Or on third down, we're doing a slow clap. Third and long, third and short, doesn't matter. That is the loudest down that we're doing. Those are the types of traditions that I think need to be brought back to then get the current students involved. Because it still is a social event, but it's a social event in the Aggie Pack section. Leave the berms to the families. Leave the berms to alums. The student section is the student section. It is a holy place that students need to be in, and they need to be standing. They need to be loud. They're behind the visiting bench, which is amazing. Shout out Josh Johnson, NFL legend Josh Johnson, who I think may be on Team 32 at this point. He and I got into a verbal altercation. It was awesome when he thought he had beaten us playing for San Diego. Like, that's the type of atmosphere that we need to be creating with the students. And so to hear the older students say, oh, we don't sit in the student section. Well, that's just a bunch of malarkey. That's just students who don't want to go have a good time. I'll get off my soapbox now, but that's the thing that, like, fires me up to hear that. And Michael, I know that's not your fault by any means, but, like, the Aggie Pack section that should be the loudest section of all students. Coach Soker used to say, when he was defining Aggie pride, right? No shortcuts. Doing the hard things, right? If standing for 60 minutes of football is a hard thing, then students need to do it, and they need to be in the Aggie Pack section. So I know I went off like a little bit of rage there, but that's, but you talk about traditions, like, there are a lot of traditions that are just gone. And I'm not talking about like Bossy Cow, which was, Sports Illustrated named it the most obscure cheer in sports, which is awesome, or college athletics. But I'm talking about what we do to get the team fired up, to get behind the team. There were cheers that we would do in certain situations. Getting the whole crowd on a big play. The other team, Dwight's nodding, other team calls a timeout, yelling "Go Ags" across the stadium, getting alums and students together. There's just a lot that can be done to script out the fun, I feel like. I know we have Darth Vader every third down, but if you were to pair that with a slow clap, that place would get electric.
Oh, we do. I don't know if you can hear it from the alumni section, but I'm
no,
carrying
we
the
can
slow
hear
clap.
but you're starting to get back to that stuff, which I think is key. For a while, a lot of those traditions were just gone. It was just Josh trying his hardest, and Josh and I talked about this a lot. Josh trying his hardest to get people just engaged. And now you've got the engaged crew. It's now taking it to the next step and getting people fired up about these games. Because as we're learning from the pod, like Brock and Dwight are giving us so much information that we would have to find out on Facebook and Instagram about these players and who they are and where these teams come from. I know more about this year's Southern Utah team than we played Southern Utah, back in 2005. Like there's some fun things that can be had now with so much information out there. So I look forward to working, Michael, with you and with the current students and with everyone. Let's see if we can break down that barrier and really, pack that Aggie Pack section.
Yeah, and I don't, Brock, I don't know where you want to take it here and probably wind us down a little bit, but yeah, I think it's going to be a combo of like, what can we learn from the past? What can we do that we've never done, right? And we were down at the green team down south this past weekend, and walking on the field before the game, Brock, and I looked up at the scoreboard, and there was like an announcement. It was like a carousel going through a bunch of things. And it was, every game, one student could win a free quarter or free semester tuition just for being at the game. I was like, who do we need to get on the phone like that? And they announced it, of course, in the fourth quarter. So there's like all these things that I know the marketing team, you, Michael, others are thinking about. And so like I'm excited to feel the atmosphere. Hopefully it's still feels the same, even if the numbers are a little bit less this coming weekend. And Michael, excited to see you in action, man.
Oh yeah, we'll get the crowd loud for you. I'll promise you that.
Hey, Dwight and Brock, when you guys were down in Brock's second favorite place to Davis, down with the green team down south, when Winston picked up that trophy, do you think he thought to himself, guys, this isn't the real trophy? Or do you think the players just don't even know?
All right, this is the moment. This is the moment, Scott. This is there's a 4-minute clock. There's a 4-minute clock, and you have the floor.
It's a 4 minute salt the game away.
Yeah, you have the floor. Now that the horseshoe in question is where it belongs, to talk about the history of the golden horseshoe.
So shout out Mateo Perez, who shot me a text and said the shoe is never leaving Davis. So I just love that.
Nice.
And Mateo, rest up. We'll get you back for playoffs. But so the history here, and this is something I feel like students could latch on to. 2004, the Aggie Pack and the Mustang Maniacs decided, hey, we need a trophy for this rivalry. The problem was they both made a trophy. One was much better than the others, UC Davis's naturally. And so the Mustang Maniacs from the school down south and the Aggie Pack decided, all right, whoever wins that game will use their trophy. Naturally, the better team won. UC Davis won that game. And then we won it again in 2005 at home. And there's pictures of Fells and all those guys, holding that trophy. But part of the lore and part of the fun of the tradition was that as those years came where the trophy was exchanging hands, Cal Poly would show up with their trophy, or they'd make a slight change to our trophy and they go back for it. They put like stupid gemstones on it or whatever. One year, Cal Poly won it and the trophy disappeared. They claimed they don't know where the trophy is. I have asked. I have a friend who was an intern with me who now works in the Cal Poly athletic department. I won't call Ernesto Perez by name by any means, but I've asked, like, hey, where's the trophy? Have you found it? And he- trust me, he cares about that trophy. And he's like, it's gone. And so this would be now 2015. They give this trophy back to UC Davis. UC Davis wins it on the road. There's a picture of one of our players, like, kind of holding the trophy like a baby. And we're like, this is the wrong trophy. No one has seen the real trophy since 2015. So we're now at 10 years. And so now they came up with what is now the Golden Horseshoe, which is this tiny little horseshoe. But every year I will go on record asking, where is the real Golden Horseshoe? And anytime Cal Poly posts about it, we don't know where the real Golden Horseshoe was. And this was a big, massive Golden Horseshoe that we would drive down to San Luis Obispo, and we'd have it very nicely put with a seatbelt around it. So there, I just wanted to get the story out there. Dwight and Brock,
Out.
I know we texted about it.
It's out.
The story is out there. So Cal Poly, give us back the real horseshoe, because we deserve it, and it never needs to leave Davis.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, because there were some conflicting stories going around, which is like that it's in Davis and the QC room, and so if it is, we want it back. Brock and I had the privilege to lift that trophy. And there's an awesome picture. You can see my elbow and my jersey number, and you can see Brock working with some other guys to hold that puppy up.
It's on our website. It's our like cover image on our main page.
Yeah. So if you are listening, you haven't seen the actual Golden Horseshoe, that's one place you can go see it on the podcast website. But thank you, Scott, because it is important. It's part of the bad blood. Obviously, hey, Cal Poly, go have a great rest of your season. That's fine by me, but we took care of business last week. So
yeah, and I'll say we saw it in the press box on a image on the wall outside of the athletic director's suite of Ramses Barden, holding it up when he, dropped 4 touchdowns. And that was actually my true freshman year. Dwight and I were winter walk-ons. So I watched that game from the stands and watched him go off because it was on Aggie Stadium field at that time. But it was the big horseshoe that they had on the photo down in the press box. And it's funny because being married to a horse gal, like the trophy now is representative of a real horseshoe. And yet from a trophy standpoint, like mascots don't really need to look like horses. So trophies don't really need to be a little dinky horseshoe that would fit on my big boy Ben. And so I am partial to the big one, and hopefully it turns up somewhere. But this has been really fun. I wanted to kind of finish with the culture piece, because this is the big conversation that comes up with like so many different college football, West Coast versus the South conversations that I have found myself in throughout the years. And as a staunch, formerly Pac-12 supporter, and of course, all things UC Davis, like I've expressed so much anger to family members when I probably shouldn't have, just defending like California football in general. Not only the UC Davises and the Cal and Stanfords of the world, like I've defended those schools, but the high school football level, which everyone knows I'm so into, and just the amount of talent drain that has gone to the South. And so, I don't know if it's necessarily like a conversation we could broach on this episode, but I think it is just worth labeling that culturally things have changed. And it's just that it's no surprise, like you said, Scott, that the alumni support has increased. Like we see the Edwards Family Athletic Center, like we see the grass berms filled week after week. I can't wait for APP Family Day this Saturday, where we bring out all of our kids and hang out in the grass berms and see everyone and their kids and rolling up and down. But I think it's something we could maybe tackle at another time, just the culture shift in California as a whole, and the college football world on the West Coast kind of struggling. Like we lost to Humboldt State My senior year, I kind of hate to admit that. We beat San Jose State my junior year, then we lose to Humboldt State my senior year. They don't have a football team anymore. Like and just the drop off of college football, and we see it with Cal and Stanford. Cal getting destroyed by Duke this past weekend. So I'll leave it at that. I will give you guys the final word as we normally do. So you're thinking of people who are driving on the 5 to work or heading into the city tomorrow morning who are listening to the UC Davis podcast. They're pretty passionate. They might have a kid on the team. They might have gone to the school. You might know some of them. Final words for the listeners. Anything that comes to mind? Michael, we'll start with you.
Yeah, just come to the games. I mean, I know that the team feels this way, but like kind of Hawkins kind of created the culture. Now Tim Plow is like the head of the snake. He's really enforcing it. Seems like they're all really getting behind him, and he's really building up this program. Um, and yeah, just support the team. Uh, Tim Plow says it like they want you there. Like they like it when you're there. And I think there was a post game interview with like Jordan Fisher. He said he heard the pop of the crowd, and I heard it too. Like
Yeah.
the stadium can get loud. Like there's no doubt about it. Like these students can get loud. I think I heard it like last year at the Montana State game. Like there can be some loud pops from that crowd. So just support the team, listen to the podcast, like anything you can do. The team is in good hands right now. I think we got some really two good running backs in Fisher, Vargas, Kane Pinnock, probably a quarterback we haven't seen in a very long time at UC Davis, a super mobile quarterback. Really speedy wide receivers, some veteran tight ends, really just solid offense. And of course, not the most ideal situation on the defense with the Connors brothers injured, but I mean, this is a good team. We don't have a Lamb Larison on this team, like someone that's a very fan favorite, I would say, but this team is pretty much just as talented as last year's team. And looking at the schedule, we really don't get tested until like the Idaho, the Montana State game, which will be super interesting down the road. But this is a playoff team. Like outside of the Dakotas, the Montanas, and Tarleton State kind of coming out of nowhere. Um, this is a top 6 team, top 7 team, top 8 team, and even potentially higher if they can beat like a Montana State. So yeah, just support the team. They really like it when students come out.
Well, I love the confidence, and after this, we're gonna preview the game this weekend. And then the big thing with the Big Sky is like, you know, any given Saturday, and so I agree with your assessment. NAU is an interesting team, and they are not a team we can look past, and so I think that's a reason that we need everyone to come out right on Saturday. And Michael, you mentioned like your roommates, you'd go to the game by yourself, your roommates maybe wouldn't. So what do you say to the folks who, maybe typically don't come to games? And what's your hook to get the folks who are on the fence or thinking about, heading over to Shields Library on Saturday to get them over to the stadium?
Yeah, so one time, when back in the day in college, I went to Coachella, and my caption on Instagram was like, something like I might fail my midterm on Monday, but you can never relive a party. So it's Brewfest this weekend in UC Davis Health Stadium. Join a tailgate. We're playing a Northern Arizona team. I think they're like 14th or 16th in the coaches poll. So yes, we will be tested, but we're definitely the favorite team, especially at home. And these are games we can't lose. In the FCS, you pretty much got to win all your home games, or else you're kind of screwed in the playoffs. Like you're either not going to make it, or you're going to get a lower seed. So these are games we can't afford to lose. I think probably the only game we can afford to lose, especially with the Mercer game being a no contest, is the Montana State game, in order to get a really top seed. So pack the stadium. It's a 4 p.m. kickoff. It's homecoming. So come support your team. The studies can wait till Sunday.
Love it. All right, Mr. Judson.
I was gonna say, end it there. Like, you can cut me off at this point. Like, that was perfect. I just want to give a quick shout out, I think, to the alums who have started coming back, but really to the coaching staff. Um, it starts with Tim. It starts with Coach Plow on getting the community involved. Being a resident of Davis, like, it says something when Tim and Coach Shelton and the other coaches, you see them around town. They're family people. They're not just hidden in an office. Um, and for what they've done for our community, for our football program, I just wanted to give them a shout out. And then you look at, they're all master recruiters. Look at Coach Coombs. Look at everyone, Coach Chap. But then look at the Davis guys that they've brought in. And this is where my final word is. I just want to say a huge thank you to the players. They don't realize the impact that they get to have on the future Aggies. When we come out to a practice and Hunter Ridley and Mitch and Rex and Porter and all these guys are coming over to my son and my daughter and saying hi and remembering their names, and it just emphasizes the quality of people that these student athletes are. They're not just football players. They are true ambassadors of our university that we all care so much about. And so just a big shout out to the coaching staff for bringing in those guys. And then I think the unsung hero of all of this is Josh Fleshman. Just got to put a plug for Flush. He does all the scheduling. He and Kitch make sure that Coach Plow can do everything he needs to do. Matt Kitchens being our director of football operations. Like, it truly takes a village. But really, huge shout out to Flush and Kitch and everyone behind the scenes, because we're talking about Caden, we're talking about the Connors brothers, we're talking about wins, we're talking about winning a national championship by time Bodie Plow graduates from high school, at least one championship. And so now, if we keep this quality of player, this quality of person coming to Davis, again, we're that volcano that's about to erupt. And so I just wanted to give that shout out because I think we focus on the football, but there's way more to it that represents our university.
Yeah, well said. I think
I think
just want to just say a thank you to both of you guys for, I think the passion for student engagement, the passion for community, and for belonging. And that's what people really want in life, to belong to something. And the vehicle is UC Davis football. And that's definitely something that we're all really passionate about. But that passion brings people together. It galvanizes it. It gives us that camaraderie. And so both of you, like Scott, I told you this one time we chatted last year. Like, I still remember my freshman orientation with you talking about beating Stanford, because I think I was like a 2007 incoming class or something like that. And just the passion that you had. I think it was like in Chem 194 or some random building on campus when we did it. But then to see you, Michael, doing it for this generation and rocking the hat and bringing the juice and saying, hey, no one else will step up, I'll do it. Like, for us, I think that's really cool. And Dwight and I are just grateful to be able to kind of hear these conversations from our perch. But Dwight, why don't you close it out?
No, that's well said. I was just gonna say both of your final words were where we could end it, because Scott, I really appreciate what you called out at the end there, which is it's about football, but it's about so much more. And that was really the heart that led to this podcast, right? Which is, it's about football, but Aggie Pride is about so much more than that. It's about life. It's about where you show up. It's how you show up. It's who you show up with. And it becomes a part of who you are, as you said earlier, Scott. So enjoyed the conversations, echo the appreciation for both of you representing past and present efforts to really get that volcano to erupt, right? And I think we're well on our way. So appreciate you both taking the time, hopefully see you out there on Saturday.
And thanks, guys. Go Ags.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go Ags.
last 2 words, go Ags.